What up is Marcus Dynasty Fun Dads. We have the Andre Swift signed jersey. All we gotta do is hit 2K. We'll be giving it away to one of you guys. We're gonna be doing Superflex startup rankings here. We're gonna be going through each and each and every single position: quarterback, running back, wide receivers, tight ends, and then we're gonna be going through what strategies we can do when we combine all of these positions together. The first thing we're going to be doing is quarterbacks. In Superflex, they are the primary gold position. I mean, when we talk about other dynasty positions, a lot of times it's running backs. It's getting the Christian McCaffreys when they're in their prime. It's getting the Todd Gurleys when they're in their prime. It's the Le'Veon Bells when they're in their prime. And then they fall off super quickly, and you have to find the next guy, which is Jonathan Taylor in this case. But we're going to be going through quarterbacks, and if you just look at the rankings of the quarterbacks, this is a startup overall. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. So if you did that math real quick, that's 7 of the first 11 picks are quarterbacks. And I don't blame them. You have to have a stud on your team, and then it's nice to try to fill in that QB2 position with either a younger QB or a young plus a vet. So Matt Ryan plus somebody. If you can do a Matt Ryan plus Zach Wilson, that's awesome. Or if you can, we'll go through some of these positions. But the first 3, it's Allen, Mahomes, and Herbert, and in no particular, and that's the order they have them. But I think really you can argue either way with their age, their fantasy football history. Josh Allen being the number 1 quarterback in back-to-back years. It's probably how I would have it too. Josh Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, 1, 2, 3. There should be no question of any wide receiver, any running back. They cannot touch this group. Jonathan Taylor does go 4 overall in the rankings, which is a really hard. It's like Jonathan Taylor might be good for the next 3 years. He might be. But quarterback number 5 is Joe Burrow. And to have Joe Burrow, who is 25, and if you have a quarterback for another 10 years versus a running back that has 3 years, I think you can have a significant advantage keeping that quarterback position going. So when Joe Burrow, we have Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott. These are the next quarterbacks that are in average draft position if we can talk. This is all by Sleeper, by the way. The Sleeper's rankings, I think, are more accurate, more up-to-date compared to, like, Fantasy Pros and some of these other sites where I'll see Lamar Jackson at 15 or something crazy. And I'm like, whoa, he's a first-round drafted quarterback almost 95% of the time. So we have Joe Burrow at 5 here, at least with Sleeper. I think that there's an argument to have him and Kyler Murray be 4 and 5. Honestly, you even look at like Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott. These are quarterbacks that are going to be around. Dak Prescott, we just kind of almost assume that he's old. He's 28 years old. I mean, if you look at his fantasy football finishes, he's 7-10, 14-2. He's actually finished 32 in 5 games played, which is actually pretty crazy, and then 8. So you're looking at a low-end quarterback 1, and he's 28. So if he plays for another, again, 10 years or even 5, 6, 7 years, you're talking about a positional advantage you're going to have over other people, especially in Superflex. It is incredibly important. And I feel like I can get into these 2nd and 3rd round running backs, and I'm not going to have a huge dip from maybe Jonathan Taylor, which sounds crazy. Jonathan Taylor's amazing. But you go into round 2 running back. Let's say you're drafting at 106, 107, and you take like a Dak Prescott, and you go to 18. Well, 18 is Christian McCaffrey. And let's say Christian McCaffrey gets taken. Okay, you're getting Austin Eckler or Breece Hall, which we're going to be talking about running backs next week. I just feel like that positional change is not enough for me to say, hey, I'm taking Jonathan Taylor over some of these quarterbacks. So that's rule number 1, I think. I'm going to overvalue my quarterback 1. I think 9 or 10 of the picks should be quarterback 1s. The things when it starts scaring me is not Lamar Jackson, not Dak Prescott. It's after that. So I guess I should rephrase that, because the first 7 quarterbacks should be taken in the first 7, 8 picks. I think it should be pretty much that. I understand the Jonathan Taylor, the Jamar Chase, or the Justin Jefferson truthers might argue it against that, but I'm taking those quarterbacks because then what we start getting is these are the quarterbacks that are drafted after pick 11 in average draft position. I don't know if I'm having a stroke if I just can't talk today, but apparently that's just what's going to happen right now. Whatever. We continue to roll on. Number 17 is Trey Lance. I don't understand this. Why? He's not even technically the starting quarterback for the 49ers right now. You have him ahead of Deshaun Watson, which is another problem because we still don't know his legal ramifications. Deshaun Watson, if he didn't have legal issues, he's probably the quarterback 4 or 5, right around there. He still could get suspended for half a year. That may not affect him a ton. There's legal potential issues that are involved with Deshaun Watson, which just makes me worried. I mean, and then we could get all the way to him being ready to start a game, and then what happens if more accusations come out? It's my thought. It could never happen. It may never happen, but that is just in the back of what are in the possibilities here. So we have Trey Lance, Deshaun Watson, Jalen Hurts, Russell Wilson, Trevor Lawrence. Risky. Besides Russell Wilson should be the next quarterback taken after Dak Prescott, in my opinion. I think he's the safest. Yes, he's got age, but Russell Wilson should be the next quarterback taken. Arguments for Deshaun Watson, and then you have these rookies from last year, and it's still risk. Like, you're talking, these are picks from 17 to 29, so rounds middle second to early third. This is definitely why, if you have one of these quarterbacks as your quarterback 1, let's say you took Jonathan Taylor, but now you have to back him up with a Trey Lance or a Jalen Hurts or a Trevor Lawrence. That's going to be a hard pill to swallow because there's a ton of risk involved in taking that quarterback versus if you took a Dak Prescott and then took an Austin Eckler. I feel much better already about that situation than I do about the situation where I take Jonathan Taylor. That's simply what you have to look at with these dynasty things. You can't just look and say, this player is better than this player, or this player is more valuable than this player. You have to say, okay, well, if I get this player, what is the value-based drafting? VBD. You do it in redraft, you do it in dynasty startups. It is the most important thing. We don't do that necessarily in rookie drafts because we don't value-based drafting. You take usually best player available because you're adding a player already to an existing team that has a huge foundation. When it's value-based drafting, when you are in the beginning of the draft, you are trying to figure out, okay, how can I gain the most value with these first 4 picks, which is incredibly important in Dynasty Startup. Well, if you're risking right off the bat, if you're taking a Jonathan Taylor and then you have to back it up with a Trey Lance, and then you have to then back it up with more future quarterbacks instead of taking some of these solid foundation players, you're adding more and more risk to your team. Yes, it could blow up amazingly and you could have an incredible team. Lots of times what I see is end up teams that struggle and teams that find that they have huge holes and they end up needing quarterbacks in 2023 or 2024 and they have to get these high picks. And so then how do you get these high picks? You have to trade some of these big named players that you have and you're just kind of in this vicious circle of you're not really competing getting to that level. One of my biggest things in redraft, and I did this, or not redraft, in Dynasty, and I did this in the Dynasty Dads League, and I've done this in many other leagues too, is I took Dak or other quarterbacks like that, and I took other quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson last year, but I took Matt Ryan, and I took Jared Goff, and I tried to take like 3-4 quarterbacks. I wanted Kirk Cousins, didn't get him, and I got sniped twice in 2 different leagues. Made me mad, but whatever. But I tried to get shore up that quarterback 1 position so that I don't have to worry about the quarterback position. Was my biggest goal. Well, I still have to worry about it a little bit in the Dynasty Dads League because, of course, Jared Goff and Matt Ryan did nothing, but I have Deshaun Watson now. So, Deshaun Watson. So now I have 2 top, I guess you could say 9 quarterbacks. I don't have to worry about trying to figure out Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett in that league. Next year, I can probably not even have to worry about that. I can figure out how to better fill in the running back and wide receiver spots in Superflex, which is much, much easier. Let's keep going with quarterbacks. After Trevor Lawrence, we get to 30. And 30, we get Matthew Stafford. 35, we get Justin Fields. 49, we have a drop-off to Aaron Rodgers, and then Mac Jones, and Tua, and Kenny Pickett. And so, I don't know why Kenny Pickett's that high. I mean, Tua is much higher than like a Kenny Pickett, and they're 1 pick apart, which makes no sense to me. If you are a team that drafts a Trey Lance or drafts a Trevor Lawrence, you're probably going to have to use a pick, probably 4th round pick on Aaron Rodgers, or a 4th round pick, or you're going to have to try to back it up with a Matthew Stafford. as Matthew Stafford's now your quarterback 1, Trey Lance is your quarterback 2. You're going to have to do that probably back-to-back picks. You're probably going to have to do Lance in the second, and you're going to have to do Stafford in the third, or Lawrence in the second and Stafford in the third. If he keeps dropping that far, I could see teams trying to pick up into that. And then afterwards, we talk about Kenny Pickett. We start getting into the Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson way high than Kenny Pickett. If you're sitting in the decision between Tua, Pickett, and Wilson, it's Tua. Well, Tua's got such good weapons. Tua, Wilson, and then Pickett. Way down here. Pickett way down there. I mean, Pickett has good weapons around him, but I believe he's a lot lesser of a quarterback than Tua and Zach Wilson. And then you even see Mac Jones up there at 52. He's just a quarterback. He's a quarterback that it's okay, but like I still think I would rather have Zach Wilson over Mac Jones because Zach Wilson has that mobility. Yes, he does have the weapons now, and Mac Jones doesn't, and they always, with Bill Belichick, will try to go through the run there, that offense. So, quarterback-wise, then we start getting into these Kirk Cousins and Ryan Tannehills and Derek Carrs, which I think are excellent QB2s for a team that has drafted one of the top quarterbacks. So this is where I see myself in an actual dynasty startup, which you guys care about, is I'm taking Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson. I'm taking one of those quarterbacks, hopefully in the first 11 picks. And now, in this 6th round, I'm taking the Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins ability. Just so you have an idea. So I'll go through it. So let's say I take Dak Prescott. I'm at pick, 7. I take Dak Prescott at 7, which means I have 7, what is that, 12, 19-ish, something like that. 19. I'm just looking at see who I would have in this realm. 19, Debo Cooper, A.J. Brown, Austin Eckler. Let's just say I take Austin Eckler. I know his age. I don't think Christian McCaffrey falls. So, in fact, I could even take Breece Hall here, which would be another option. But let's just say I take Austin Eckler. And then the 3rd round comes around, which, gosh, now I have to do really math. 24, 29, right? 29. Now I can take either a Joe Mixon, I can take a Devontae Adams, a T. Higgins. These are all players that I could easily get. So let's see, 30, 40, what is it, 36? I need to do an actual mock draft, which I will, so trust me on this. So really, I got Dak, let's just say Eckler, Mixon, which is a little bit older roster than I need. I prefer, but that's what we're just doing. So now it's 12, 24, 36, 40. Wide receiver, I could take a Kittle or a Kelsey or a Diggs. Yeah, so I'd take Diggs here. So yeah, I have a little bit of an older roster, but that's all right. And then we go back into the 5th round here, and then that's where we start we could even reach and take a quarterback if we really, really, really wanted one that fell. 48, 53. I'm looking at 53. Or I take a DJ Moore. So, and I love my roster just even hypothetically, or Terry McLaurin, or Chris Godwin. Like, I love that type of roster. And then in the 6th round, I'm going to take that quarterback, the Derek Carr, the Kirk Cousins, into that kind of realm. Let's see, what's even below those guys? Ryan Tannehill, Daniel Jones, Carson Wentz is way down there. Yeah, so I'm taking the Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill group. I'm taking one of those 3 wide receivers, or even if the Zach Wilson falls, I'll take him. I like that roster already. I see that it's like Eckler, Mixon, and let's say I don't take Eckler, I take Breece Hall. So maybe I take the youth. So I take Hall, Mixon, I take Diggs, I have DJ Moore, and now I'm sitting in the 7th round, really. So what is that, 7th round? So 80, let's just say 80-ish. And now I can start looking at other players like Dallas Goedert could be a nice tight end. Mike Evans is actually that far. Michael Carter to kind of handcuff my Breece Hall if I really needed to. I don't think so. Pat Freiermuth, who I love. Amari Cooper is awesome. Leonard Fournette would be a good, I think a really good play if I took Breece Hall. So there's a lot of different strategies you can have, but this is my number one thing I always say is I think quarterbacks are gold. You got to take the quarterback because I'll probably do mock drafts of both just so then we can kind of settle it and be like, okay, well, what would you guys do if you were in the situation where you took And I do that a lot of times too. In redraft and dynasty startup, I go, okay, if I take a running back, I'm pick 7. If I take a running back first, do I like my team? Okay, this is where my biggest weaknesses are. Am I okay with that going in the next 36 months? Because really, three years is what I look at. 3 to 5 years is that kind of gap of like, okay, do I like this? Am I going to contend early and need to figure out how to keep contending, or am I going to slowly build into contention mode and championship mode? Youth will sometimes do that, and I like to pick youth over. Sometimes that's where I get a little bit crazy. I'll take that youth, that upside. Maybe I'll take that Breece Hall over the Eckler, even though that Breece Hall is a little bit more risky because we don't know. He's never been on the NFL field yet. Versus Eckler is a stud. We know he's a stud. He'll probably be a stud for the next 12, 24, could be even 36 months. I don't think so, 36 months, but I think he could be a stud for the next year or two, especially in that offense. He could be a game changer. So these are all things that I highly recommend just doing, and especially on Sleeper. They have an excellent platform that you can actually do these mock drafts. I think it's very, very important. So that is our quarterback type of strategy that I like to do. And then deep, let's just go through it 2 seconds. Let's go way down there and see what we got. Matt Ryan at 150. I'll take a Matt Ryan at 150 to be my QB3. Jimmy Garoppolo's down there. Mitchell Trubisky. Sam Darnold. Drew Lock. I guess Drew Lock. It gets ugly quick. You start looking, you go, crap, this looks ugly quick. But I guess I'm Jared Goff at 156. Winston at 143. Baker at 140. He should play some games. Brady at 137 is an absolute steal right now. I didn't see that he was at 137. I mean, he's going to play a year. And when he plays, he'll be a top 10 quarterback in fantasy football. So maybe I'm taking Tom Brady as a third quarterback if I'm in that big contending team. 137, that's what, round 11? I take a couple more wide receivers and running backs, and then maybe a tight end flipped in there too, and then boom, I take Tom Brady in round 9, 10, whatever it is, 10. I up his ADP a little bit. I drafted him around 10, and then I'm sitting with like a Kirk Cousins, Tom Brady for a year, 2 years, 5 years, maybe he never dies. And I have Dak Prescott. I have 3 stud quarterbacks. And a team that is playoff needy, I am looking at them going, okay, do you have a young quarterback that I can trade Tom Brady for? Or do you have a player that I really need that fits? Maybe I lack on that tight end, and I really need that tight end. So maybe I try to trade Tom Brady for a tight end, or Tom Brady plus something for a tight end. So, again, this is Marcus Dynasty Fun Dads. It's a lot of talking. I hope you stuck with me here. All right, peace out. Take care.